Hey y'all, this is Harmony from Make It Weird. You may notice that the audio quality in these next few episodes doesn't sound quite as nice as it usually does. That's because it's not as nice. We made a small boo-boo while recording a few episodes, but as the great Alanis Morissette once said, you live, you learn. We'll have things back to our normal, crystal clear quality starting on mini episode number 7. Allegedly. Thank y'all for listening and being patient as Haley and I navigate the scary podcast world. Enjoy the episode and keep it weird. Bye!
It's all good in the proverbial hood. Or as the kids say, Gucci in the coochie.
If you go to your OB regularly, it should be Gucci in the coochie.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Hi!
Hello! Welcome to the Bugcast,
This is the Bugcast.
where we talk about bugs. And
so
only
many bugs. Do you like bugs?
I love bugs.
Good.
In
I was
my
talking to them, but
Oh,
glad you like bugs. I'm the Bugcast.
especially love being a bug found inside a man's intestines. I'm the cockroach, and that's the chick.
the chick. And this is Dateline.
Oh, fuck. Have a seat. I'm Chris Hansen.
The cockroach.
Chris Hansen, the cockroach. Oh, I don't think he's a cockroach. I'm pretty sure Chris Hansen's a pretty okay guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can be an okay guy and be a cockroach. Don't cockroach hate.
He caught child predators, Harmony.
I'm saying cockroaches aren't all bad.
Oh, okay.
Not all cockroaches.
All cockroaches.
Not all cockroaches.
Anyway,
Welcome
Hello.
to Make It Weird.
the podcast where we make it weird.
About bugs.
Do you want to get started?
Yes, please. I'm excited for this week.
Are you?
I'm very, very excited.
I'm glad you're excited. I'm not. I'm horrified.
Great.
Beautiful.
Let's
go.
get into it. Yeah. Mine is horrifying, but good to listen to.
Okay.
Yeah, horrifying in an interesting way.
Good. That's my favorite kind.
Yeah. All right. Let's get started. Let's travel back
Okay.
to the early 1970s.
Oh, perfect. Is there Coke?
Obviously.
Oh, great. I'm in.
Swimming in it.
Yeah, I love
You
Coca-Cola.
breathe in the air. Oh.
Anyway.
All right. So we're in the early 1970s.
Okay. Got our disco pants on. My hair's all like feathered. and
Yeah. It's good. It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
And let's go to the filming of the famously well-known movie, The Exorcist.
Oh, I love these stories. Oh, I don't, but you know.
Yeah.
I hate that they happen, but I love movie filmings that
Yeah, movie lore and
Yeah.
stuff. So I'm gonna get into that, but I'm also gonna dive into one thing in particular.
Okay.
So it is fairly well known that there were a lot of mysterious and creepy events both surrounding and during filming of the movie The Exorcist,
Mhm.
which was released in 1973. If you didn't know that, where have you been?
Under a rock.
Yeah, like deep in the soil.
Sorry, I'm just moving my steps so it's
You're good. I actually like your cuticle oil in the shot.
Oh.
Put it up by the camera.
Or just like hold my cuticle oil like right here for everybody to see. I'll just keep it in the shot.
This is a promotion podcast for cuticle oil. Cuticle oil. Oil your cuticles.
Jojoba oil. Perfect for your butthole.
Speaking of buttholes,
Oh,
it's fairly well known. No, I already said that part. At the very beginning. In the beginning.
In the beginning. In the beginning. In the beginning.
In the beginning.
are you okay? Do we need to start over?
No, I love that video. That track so much. In the beginning. Alright. At the very beginning of filming, the set of the McNeil house, which the McNeils are the family, the daughter of whom was being exorcised.
She went to the gym.
Yeah, correct. The set of the McNeil house mysteriously caught fire and was completely engulfed. However, Reagan, the daughter who I just said, who is allegedly possessed, Reagan's room remained completely intact and untouched by the fire.
That's spooky.
Isn't that spooky as fuck?
That is crazy.
It took about 6 weeks to rebuild the set. There were also several serious injuries on set to both cast and crew. A crew member lost his toe, a carpenter cut off his thumb, and both actors Linda Blair, who played Reagan, and Ella Burstyn, who played Reagan's mother, suffered serious back injuries during filming that caused lifelong back problems and chronic pain. Like, really bad stuff.
Yeah.
I believe the mom is the scene when Reagan like pushes her back. They have a her in a harness so that she can be, pulled back, and they pulled her harder than they had practiced because it's the 1970s.
They don't
fuck
care.
their rules.
Yeah, women in the movie industry don't matter.
It's just wild to me. They didn't even have stunts. There were no stunt doubles. Let's just endanger everyone. Wild.
Reagan's was also from like a mechanism similar to that, right?
Hers was from being on the bed in a scene where she's like convulsing
Yes.
and they have mechanics shaking the bed.
Yes.
And
Okay.
her screams, like her cries during that scene, are legitimate because I don't remember what exactly happened, but there was some kind of fracture. And they kept that in the movie. So if you go to that scene and she's screaming, it's from real pain.
Dude.
Isn't it kind of
Ugh,
icky?
I hate
Like,
that.
I hate it as well.
God, I love that movie. It's a really great movie. That movie, just so much about it feels so like real and raw.
Yeah.
Like the scene when she's in the hospital and they're doing the spinal tap.
Save it, because we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that.
Okay.
All right. Also, there were deaths. 9 people died during and shortly after the production, including an assistant cameraman's newborn baby
Oh my gosh.
and a night watchman. There were also 2 deaths of relatives of 2 actors early on in the filming.
Oh.
Reagan's grandfather, I believe, and someone else's relative.
Yeah.
These are just a few of the many awful and weird things that occurred during production of the movie. But the one that stands out the most to me involves a man who was cast as an extra in the film named Paul Bateson.
Okay.
Do you know where I'm going?
I haven't.
Don't spoil it, but
I haven't listened to any exorcism related lore type stuff in like years. I'll be so honest, like
Okay.
since New York. So
Okay, cool. I'm
it's all
excited
new
to
to
tell
me.
you this then. So the director of the film, William Friedkin, it may be Friedkin, I'm not entirely
I think
sure.
it's freaking.
I like Friedkin better. William Friedkin. Actually,
Freaking these peanuts in your mouth. No, wait, no, freaking these, no, freaking the peanuts, the peanuts, freaking peanuts. When will we have freaking these wheat in your mouth? I'm sorry.
speaking of peanuts,
Peanut. Jorking my PR.
stop! I hate that video so much.
You don't like those? Oh my god, I love them.
All right, so the director of the film, William Friedkin,
Okay.
actually cast this man, Paul Bateson, himself when he watched him perform a cerebral angiography the year prior to production starting. So the director went to a hospital prior to production
Oh.
to research the scene you were talking about.
Oh my god.
And so he hired a few different people at the hospital, and he also hired the main doctor, is like an actual doctor in that scene.
Really?
I believe so, yeah. So for those that don't know, a cerebral angiography is a form of angiography which provides images of blood vessels in and around the brain, thereby allowing detection of abnormalities such as arteriovenous malformations and aneurysms.
I think my grandma had one of those done.
Like, they don't
Years
do
ago.
them anymore. So we live in
Okay, okay.
like this. They don't do them this way anymore because
Okay.
it was like really unsafe.
Gotcha.
Because they're basically like spinal tap, like taking the blood like gushing out of your. It's a whole it's awful.
Okay. Yeah, no.
So the man that we were talking about, Bateson, he was cast as a radiologist for the famous scene in The Exorcist where this procedure is performed on Reagan, and it was marked as possibly the most disturbing scene in the film. Which is wild because it doesn't have anything paranormal. It's just a
No.
disgusting hospital scene with blood and disgusting things everywhere.
But it's not gory. Like they're just doing the procedure.
yeah, but there is like blood splatter and like
Yeah.
it gets a little out of control.
But it's not like you're not seeing somebody getting ripped to shreds or like
Right, yeah.
tortured. I
Yeah.
mean, you are, but
The other reason this scene was particularly disturbing is because, while not known at the time, this man playing a basic role as a medical assistant would very soon after become a murderer and possible serial killer.
what?
Mhm.
Oh my gosh. No, I've definitely not heard of this. Thank you.
So this is the story of Paul Bateson and the 1970s bag murders.
Wow.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about Bateson himself. He was born on August 24th, 1940. He grew up in Pennsylvania. He served in the Army in the early 1960s, where he began drinking heavily out of boredom while stationed in Germany, beginning a lifelong struggle with alcoholism.
What else are you supposed to do?
Yeah, that's
You
true.
could, when was this? The 1930s? you said?
1960s.
1960s? Oh my god, he definitely helped spread Jingle Bells, Batman Smells.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He was all about that shit.
It's his favorites. Child rhymes, you know? Did he murder children?
No.
Okay, alright, then I feel fine making that joke.
Yeah. I mean, you can't say 100% for sure, I guess, but no, that's
He
not.
definitely said Jingle Bells, Batman Smells at least once in his life.
Yeah, absolutely. So in 1964, he moved to New York City, where he began a relationship with a man, parentheses, he would later describe himself as not exclusively gay.
So bisexual?
Yeah, he's basically, it's just a way of him in that time
Yeah.
trying to say, like, I'm not actually gay. So this man he started dating, he said, was involved in music. So
Okay.
they're in the music and arts, scene in New York City.
Good for them.
Unfortunately, their relationship was marked by heavy drinking and partying. Maybe not unfortunately, I'm sure they're having a great time.
It's New York City, and like,
But
yeah.
but he's an alcoholic, so he's doing it day and night.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, not good.
Yeah. Imagine drinking and partying like in the late 60s in New York City. And
I'd have
seen
such a good time.
brawl. All right. So around the same time, Bateson started training to become a neurological radiological technologist.
Great. Lots of words.
So hard to say. In 1973, the relationship with this man and Bateson ended, and he moved to the Brooklyn neighborhood of Borough Park, where he commuted to his job at New York University Medical Center, NYUMC.
Great.
NYUMC. A year prior, in 1972, when the film director who I mentioned earlier, William Friedkin, visited the hospital where Bateson worked and hired him for the radiology assistant role in The Exorcist. Bateman would later suggest that his appearance in The Exorcist was revenge on his father for punishing him as a child by making him stay home on Saturday from the matinees at the local movie theater and listen to opera on the radio instead.
Okay.
So I think he may be a little petty.
Yeah.
All right, so the film The Exorcist was released in December of 1973, the day after Christmas. Merry Christmas! Let's go exorcise a demon.
I mean, we saw Nosferatu like a couple of days after
Came out on
Christmas,
Christmas
so
Day,
like
yeah.
valid.
Right.
I feel like the only reason that they released that movie on Christmas was because like there's a scene with a Christmas tree in Nosferatu. They're like, it's a Christmas movie.
And there was literally the panic of like, it's almost Christmas time. Can we
my
just
God.
chill out? Like
Literally, like one of the characters says to the woman who's going through these fits of like, it's Christmas time, girl. Get it together.
Christmas is important. Please stop having these little fits that you have.
Such a romantic.
God. All right, so around this time, Bateson's drinking increased again and started affecting his social life. And sometime between 1975 and 1977, the date varies between articles, he was let go from his job at NYUMC. He held odd jobs for a period of time after he was let go. He even joined AA and was successful in staying sober for a very short period of time, but he tried. He socialized with other recovering alcoholic gay men and was hoping to start another long-term relationship. Bateson was openly gay, allegedly, kind of conflicts with what we said earlier, and also known to be a regular at leather bars in New York, which is where he met his only confirmed victim, variety journalist Addison Verrill. So leather bars in the 1970s, a little bit like BDSM style
like
thing.
Gay, gay BDSM club. Yeah,
exactly. So on September 14th, 1977, Addison Verrill was found stabbed and beaten to death in his own apartment. Police originally thought it was a robbery gone wrong. There were signs of a struggle in the apartment, but nothing of value had been taken. There was also no evidence of forced entry, which means it was most likely that Verrill let his attacker into the apartment willingly.
So it was like somebody that he knew.
Yes.
Yeah.
A reporter for the Village Voice, named Arthur Bell, also believed the attack was not related to a robbery and wrote an article about the case. He wrote about Verrill's murder and how murders of gay men in the village were usually seen as the consequence of sexual encounters gone wrong, so they were rarely taken seriously by police or covered by media.
Yeah, which I still feel like to this day we still see a little bit of.
It's not fixed.
Yeah,
like the problem is still there. Same thing with sex workers of any gender. Like they feel like that's your line of work. Like you're choosing to put yourself at risk.
Yeah, they're like the less dead is what I've heard.
Oh, that's a horrible.
Isn't
heard
it?
That that's
Yeah.
awful.
That like they, it doesn't really matter. Like they're just, oh well, they probably just ran away, or oh, they probably just went to a different city to work. It's like no.
When sex workers go missing, 9 times out of 10, especially when they're women, they're like, oh well, they probably just ran off.
Yeah.
Like or they overdosed somewhere.
Same thing with like troubled teens and shit. Like there's so many stories about like young girls that have gotten kidnapped and murdered and other awful things, and it's just like, oh well, she'll probably just run away.
Right, and it's like she may be, but it's like we don't have time to
to
let it sit and decide if she's going to come back home or whatever.
Yeah,
I think it's a very valuable use of police's time to still look into it.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times they don't.
That's so sad.
All right, so 8 days after Verrill's body was found, Bell, the author that I just mentioned, got a call from someone who claimed to be Verrill's killer.
Oh.
According to Bell, the caller said, quote, I like your story and I like your writing, but I'm not a psychopath. Right?
You're literally shut the fuck up. You're calling the author.
Yeah.
What an ego.
I'll get into this more later. If this feels somewhat like a crime of passion, but But if this truly was Bateson calling, the killer calling about this, they're enjoying the limelight.
Yeah.
Like a lot of serial killers do.
Absolutely.
They want to be in the media and they want people to be talking about them. So he went on to, the person on the phone, he went on to describe his night with Verrill. The two men met at a popular leather gay bar on Christopher Street, did drugs together, and went back to Verrill's apartment. After the caller realized Verrill did not want the relationship to go any further than a one-night thing, he snapped. Quote, "It was rejection that triggered things. Something flared up in my head. I decided to do something I'd never done before. I took a heavy frying pan from the kitchen and knocked Addison out. Then I went into a drawer in the right-hand side of the kitchen, removed a knife, and stuck it into Addison's chest." Again, we can't confirm 100% that this was the actual caller, or the actual killer calling, but it seems very likely.
Were those, like, facts about the case that hadn't been released yet?
I don't know if they had been released.
Okay.
Yeah, they may not have been. Bell went directly to the police, and it didn't take them long to zero in on Paul Bateson and arrest him. Although Bateson didn't seem surprised to be arrested and made a similar confession at the police station, he tried to backtrack and deny everything during the preliminary trial. The judge ruled that his confession was admissible, and Bateson ended up being found guilty of murder and sentenced to, guess how many years?
2.
More than that, but still not good.
5?
20 years in prison.
Oh, wow.
He's
20
like
years.
30s. Yeah.
Damn. That's actually more than I expected.
It's not
Obviously,
great, but
yeah.
it's, yeah. So, around the same time, there was another ongoing investigation into the murders of 6 unidentified into the murder of 6 unidentified men. I said it again!
Bro.
Unidentified men who had been linked to New York City's gay scene. The victims were all found dismembered and thrown in garbage bags in the Hudson River.
Wait, but that's a very different MO.
Exactly. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. So this is where they get the name the Bag Murders. During Batesman's sentencing for the Verrill murder, prosecutors briefly tried to also connect the serial killings to Bateson, but they had little evidence to support their theory. All they really had was the fact that the medical examiners said, quote, "The person who cut up those bodies was a person who was either a butcher or a person with medical knowledge based on the way the cuts were done." Bateson, being medically trained and gay, fit their narrow idea of who the killer must be.
That's just, like, lazy police work.
Yeah, I'm going to talk more about it, but it's basically the very common scenario of police just trying to close a case.
Yeah.
You know, point somebody out and kind of,
wash their
wipe
hands of it. Yeah.
So somewhere around 1979, while all this is happening and Bateson is currently in prison awaiting trial, the director of The Exorcist, William Friedkin, actually decided to visit Bateson and speak with him.
Oh.
And he allegedly visited him on multiple occasions.
Oh.
So he wanted to be buddy-buddy with him. Kind of.
I mean, but, like, also, I don't know, being in prison, regardless, is a very lonely thing. Irregardlessly.
Mm-hmm.
And without regard.
Exactly.
So, like, especially if, like, you're the director of the movie and you put a child in close proximity to somebody who ended up being a murderer,
Yeah.
I could maybe feel, like, sympathy with somebody wanting to go to, like, kind of, I don't know, like, maybe convince themselves that the person wasn't
You
as
would
evil.
like to think that that's why he's visiting. Unfortunately, it's because he wanted to make a movie about it.
Oh! Man, here I am trying to, like, fucking
Yeah.
be a good person and give him benefit of the
He
doubt.
didn't have sympathy, and he wanted, or sympathy for the child in the situation he put them in. But yeah,
Wow, man, I gotta stop being so nice about things.
it is good. It is good of you to default to kindness. We should do that. I don't.
I know.
All right. Anyways, so based on their conversations, Friedkin decided to adapt Gerald Walker's 1970 novel Cruising into a movie, taking inspiration from the recent murders to serve as plot elements.
Wow.
The eponymous film was released in 1980, with Al Pacino starring in the main role.
Oh, so this film actually got made.
Yes, it did. Friedkin later claimed that while interviewing Bateson, he got him to partially admit responsibility for the murders, particularly about one gay man whose body he had dismembered, the remains stuffed in a garbage bag and then thrown in the East River. This is all hearsay.
No, of course it is. Yeah.
And you've got a murderer, at least we know he's murdered one person, in prison. Someone is coming to visit him, and he just gets to talk about himself.
Yeah.
People, psychopaths like this, like, they eat that shit up. So it's a great, like, breeding ground for them to lie.
Yeah. I mean, there's also the issue, too, of I guess more benefit of the doubt. My bad. I know I haven't learned my lesson with this. What can I say? Where when people are in stressful situations like prison, if they are lonely and like I'm sure being a gay man in prison at this time, an openly gay man, probably wasn't the best. He might have isolated himself in a cell a lot more than like a prisoner who wasn't an openly gay man. So if that's like the only person that he has to talk to, or one of the few that actually talks to him with respect, I could see myself saying whatever the fuck to keep having somebody come around to talk to me.
Yeah,
I fucking talk on the podcast all the time and nobody fucking listens to me here. I do it in prison.
Confessed to murder like 7 times on this podcast.
Yeah, I cut it out every time.
I know. I'm like, stop talking about it on the podcast.
No, I just really like it. It's the only time you look at me with love in your eyes.
It's the only time I've been proud of her. We do not condone murder or violence. Okay. So the movie Cruising was unfortunately, but not surprisingly, very homophobic in nature.
Of course.
And it portrayed the very problematic ideologies described by the Village Voice author Arthur Bell. That is a horrible thing to say.
That's a tongue twister.
Author Arthur Bell. About how the murders of gay men were often ignored or belittled by police in the 70s and 80s. So this movie that he made is just adding to the cause, unfortunately. It's sad because you feel like you were just saying, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he's trying to do the right thing, but at the time, there weren't a lot of movies like that. So it almost is like a move in the right direction, but it's still, unfortunately,
it's just like right sensationalism.
Yeah. So the filming process of Cruising was met with, quote, angry demonstrations by segments of the city's homosexual community. Bell stated that the emergence of films in which LGBT characters took center stage contributed to aggression, intolerance, and political repression against the community. And fearing possible additional murders, residents of Greenwich Village turned to their then mayor, Ed Koch, requesting that he deny permissions to the film crew to shoot in order to ease tensions. Koch denied the request. It could be Koch. It's Koch. Denied the request, resulting in continued protests in the streets, which eventually required law enforcement to intervene. It's all very, very awful, but it's important to talk about because I do feel like not until the past 10, 15 years people have actually talked about, the murders in the gay community of men because, you think of men being safe and it happened a lot and people didn't talk about it. And there was a lot of serial killers that had a type and they were murdering only gay men and they were seeking them out.
Yeah.
All over the world. And it's just recently been more talked about, I feel like.
I feel like for a long time, gayness was considered icky.
Exactly.
Especially gay men. Lesbians are a little bit more accepted. Even nowadays, I feel like it's the same way.
Wild, but yeah.
It doesn't surprise me because sorry guys that listen, men are gross. So many men that I have met, and granted, I shouldn't say, so many teenagers that I interacted with in high school when I feel like being gay and talking about being gay was really becoming a lot more open, would say shit like, well, guys kissing guys is gross, but girls kissing, that's hot. And it's of course you would say that.
Fucked up. So fucked up. I had the same exact experience. All right. So going back to the bag murders and their possible connection to Bateson, it's not impossible that Bateson is the one responsible for these murders. He continued denying his involvement in them leading up to and during trial, and there was simply not enough evidence, really hardly any at all, besides just a theory. I don't even know if they were able to use the conversation he had with the director.
Well, I think too, if you're the director and you're talking to him and this guy confesses murder to you, why would you not go directly to the police?
Yeah, and I apologize. I don't know the timeline of that. It could have been after he was convicted and it may not have mattered anymore. But it's also, it wasn't an actual confession, I guess. If it's not in police presence, I don't know how that works then. So he was never charged for any involvement with these other murders. And he was only charged for the one murder of Addison Verrill. But they don't have enough evidence. It's like we said earlier, the police are just trying to tie the knot in this other case. I thought I had written down a quote, but he even said, basically, I know the police are just trying to find somebody to pin this on. And he wasn't saying, oh, I definitely don't want to be associated with that. He was like, nah, bro, I didn't do that. I did do this one thing, but, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Which to me screams like he didn't do it.
Yeah, because it doesn't make any sense. It's just a totally different MO.
You don't go from a borderline crime of passion because hitting someone with beating them up is one thing. That's kind of a crime of passion. Choosing to stab them afterwards, not so much. But that doesn't match up with cutting people up
Yeah,
and putting them in bags. That is a huge jump.
absolutely.
And it might make sense if they were like 15 years apart and he progressed in his murders, but these were right next to each other. So it doesn't really fit. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, there's no progression. Yeah.
I would like to name the victims of the bag murders, but most unfortunately, each of them remain unidentified to this day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I assume it's a combination of them being cut up and hard to identify. And I don't know if the body parts, I don't know if they were bagged per person or if the body parts are split among. Combination of that and people probably not giving a shit because they were gay.
Well, and there's also the thing too, okay, New York City is huge. So many people from around the country go to New York City. So these people could be from let's say Wisconsin, and you don't have family members there to identify.
Especially if they are gay, they're
know.
escaping to New York City
Exactly.
to try and be who they can be.
That's heartbreaking.
But I will talk about Addison Verrill. He was 36 years old when he was murdered by Paul Bateson. He was a movie industry reporter for Variety, and he graduated from Princeton University in 1963 and had been with Variety for 10 years. Previously, he spent 3 years in Nigeria with the Peace Corps.
Wow.
He seemed like a really cool guy.
Yeah.
So Bateson went on trial in early 1979. The state entered both his confession and Bell's Voice article into evidence against him. Contrary to his prediction, so that was the phone call.
Yeah. Okay.
Contrary to his prediction of a long trial in the wake of his arrest, Bateson was convicted of a second-degree murder after 4 days on March 5th, 1979, so pretty quick.
Wow.
Bateson ultimately only served 24 years and 3 months of his sentence, becoming eligible for parole in 1997. On the day after his 63rd birthday in August 2003, he was released from Arthur Kill Correctional Facility on Staten Island.
One of the things that I hate about Staten Island, New York City, Long Island is because the Dutch colonized there and kill is their word for creek or street.
Yeah.
There are so many things that are just called kill. There's this is awful. 9/11 happened, and when they brought a lot of the scrap to a junkyard, one of them was named kill.
Oh god,
And I was that's really, can we pick another one, please?
Right? That's not great. Yeah, that's funny to think about. So according to online records kept by the State's Department of Corrections and Community Supervision, his parole was successfully completed in November of 2008. That was the last public record of Bateson available as of 2021.
Wow.
Where he is living, or even if he is alive, is not known. In 2018, author Matt Miller of Esquire wrote an article about Bateson. Miller attempted to contact Bateson for the article at his last known address in Long Island, but was unsuccessful as the phone had been disconnected. Emails to different addresses either bounced or were not answered. In his podcast interview around the same time, Friedkin said he had heard Bateson was living somewhere in upstate New York. So, alive or dead, we're not really sure. There was someone with the same name in the Social Security database that was listed as being dead. It could be him. But Paul Bateson is it's
a pretty generic name.
Yeah. In 2019, interest in this case was revived following the release of the second season of the psychological crime thriller, Mindhunter.
Okay.
The 6th episode briefly covered the bag murders and Bateson's possible involvement in them. Have you watched Mindhunter?
I haven't. It's one of those shows, Casey says that I would really like it. You've said that I would really like it. Everyone's you would probably like Mindhunter. But I don't know
if I said that, because I'm going to be honest, I watched 4 or so episodes, and I kind of fell off of it, not because it was bad, I think it was good, but for whatever reason it just didn't pull me in.
No, yeah, that's kind of how I felt. I was I was there for the crime, I wasn't there for the drama, and it was definitely more of a drama.
It's very, very much based in psychology, which is interesting. But yeah, it just didn't keep me around for too long, but I think it is, I'm not saying it's a bad show, and we'll probably get flack for that, because people love that show.
That's fine. Let them throw hate.
But that wraps up this journey of a story surrounding The Exorcist, the murder of Addison Verrill by one-time actor Paul Bateson, and the 1970s bag murders.
Wow, thank you. That was really great.
It's really welcome.
I love that you gave me a piece of movie lore that I didn't know.
I'm surprised that you didn't know it, because I thought for sure Haley would know this.
I know. That's what Casey and I were talking about that last night, because after we dropped you off, we started talking about Nosferatu and other horror movies and stuff. And I was like, man, I'm kind of a pedantic asshole. I love movies and music lore and trivia and stuff. And I was like, maybe I need to chill out. Maybe I should pretend that I don't know stuff as much as I do. But I genuinely didn't know that. So thank you.
No, I think it's okay to know that stuff. As long as you're not jumping when people try to explain something, be like, actually.
I do that on the podcast sometimes.
That's okay. We're all about the truth here on Make It Weird.
Well,
so-
would you like a little bit of movie and music trivia about Ghost?
Yes.
So I think it's their single for Secular Haze. One of the singles,
Ghost, like the movie Ghost, or Ghosts?
Ghost, the band Ghost.
Oh, the band Ghost. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
There's also a movie called Ghost.
I know. We don't talk about it.
They're very different.
They are. So the band Ghost,
Mhm.
one of the singles that they released for their album Fantasium, their second album, I want to say it's Secular Haze. The art for the single, if you look at it, is actually an edited screenshot or screen grab from the movie Nosferatu.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's when Nosferatu is on the ship.
I love them for that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's what Casey and I talked about, where I was like, I just love knowing stuff so I can like find symbolism or like different things, and sometimes you get like different lore that mixes together.
It's cool.
And I'm sorry, I also bragged to him about how when we watched fucking Midnight Mass, how episode 1 ended, and I was like, it's vampires. And
I
I
don't
was like,
even think it had ended yet. We were like halfway through the first episode, and you were like, "It's probably vampires," and I was like, "If you're right, I'm killing myself."
And then, like,
now I'm dead.
my favorite thing too with that, sorry, let me just talk about how great and smart I am, was like, that ended and I was like, well, here's all the big major plot points that are going to happen in the next like 6 episodes. And I was pretty on track with most of them.
Unfortunately, you were right about most of them, which is really fucking annoying.
Oh, but I've consumed like so much vampire media and lore. Like, I read Dracula at a very young age, and from there, like, just fell in love with it. And
Yeah.
I love folklore, so like horror movies like that, when you kind of recognize trends. I don't know.
But I
It's
mean,
fun.
that's kind of what has brought about this podcast. Like a year or two ago, when you were like, "Do you want to start a podcast?" And I was like, "Well, what are we going to talk about?" And you were kind of like, "I think just like weird shit." And growing up, I was pretty like religiously sheltered.
Mhm.
I also have horrible anxiety, and I was undiagnosed, and everything scared me. Everything scared me. I was not watching horror movies. If a horror movie like preview came out while I was watching Nickelodeon, I would literally have trauma for like months. Like,
Some of them were really scary.
some of them were really scary. Like one of the newer Exorcist movies that came out like 2010 or something like that.
Oh,
But,
that
like-
was so good.
Oh, I had heard about it, but
Yeah, that was really good.
but so like I didn't actually start getting into this kind of stuff until like I don't know 4 or 5 years ago. So like it's kind of cool that I'm just now getting into all this, and so it made sense for us to talk about
Yeah.
this weird shit like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I just always had unfettered access to the internet, which allowed me to find and see things that I really should have never seen. And from there, it's grown. And now I like bugs.
Yeah, I feel like you've always liked bugs.
I have.
Yeah.
Some people find bugs pretty traumatizing, though. And some people might find my next story to be pretty traumatizing. I shouldn't laugh. It's just the whiplash that I did with
Yeah.
that lead in.
Speaking of trauma.
Yeah, speaking of trauma, so I want to give a really, 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 really big trigger warning regarding sexual assault, rape, and like drugging and being unconscious while things happen to you. If those types of things, if you're sensitive to those, feel free to entirely skip the rest of this podcast. I'm going to be covering a pretty recent story that involves those aspects. Justice is served, so if that's something that you're more sensitive to or you're able to digest, knowing that at the end justice is served, then maybe continue listening, but please be aware and, make the choice that's best for you and your mental health.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
What if I just walked out?
Well, I don't know if I would keep doing the podcast. I have to pick a different topic. All right. So, you won't really see me doing like a lot of current news or true crimes or conspiracy stuff as we do this podcast. I like to usually give stuff time to marinate, and like it can become kind of hard to tell the truth of a story when you have like a bunch of news articles or whatever coming out. But like this is one of those things where no, that's not what's happening here.
Okay.
This is a story that's horrific and heartbreaking, and I just felt like we should share like this woman's story, and really the story of her family. So we are going to talk about the mass rape of Gisèle Pelicot. I mentioned this to you a little bit last week because when I heard about all this, I was just so baffled, and it's
Insane.
it's insane. So these are French names. They're French locations. If I mispronounce them, I do apologize. I'm doing the best
not
that
French?
I can. Fuck no.
Oh, I thought you were.
I don't give up at the first sign of defeat. Ah, dude. That's awful. The French are great. Honestly, they really know how to protest, and I love them for that. So Gisèle was actually born in December of 1952 in Germany. Her family moved to France in the 1960s, and in 1971, she met her future husband, Dominique Pelicot. They married in April of 1973 and settled in a suburb of Paris where they had 3 children. The couple had separated in 2001, but they cohabitated and then remarried in 2007.
Interesting. Okay.
I know, right? Like, wild. I don't really understand that dynamic, but whatever.
You do you.
At some point around 2010, Gisele was prescribed lorazepam, a drug that can cause sleepiness. It seems like it's mostly for anxiety and stuff. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
I don't know what her diagnosis was.
Yeah,
My business.
I've not tried lorazepam, but it's my understanding is it's a pretty decent antidepressant.
Okay. Her husband began taking advantage of her drug state and abusing her while she slept. He even obtained sleeping pills of his own that he began putting into her food to render her unconscious from his doctor, who obviously had no idea that this was going on. They had been married for 40 years at this point. 40. Like, that's total. So from the 71 when they first got married, not including the time that they were separated, 40 years.
Oh my God.
Yes, and that started in 2010. Upon retirement in 2013, the couple moved to Mazan, which there he got so fucking brazen and, like, I don't even know, just confident with this disgusting behavior that he began inviting other men to abuse her. Gisele began having issues with her memory, believing herself to be at the beginning symptoms of Alzheimer's due to the chunks of, like, entire days that she had no memory of because he was drugging her. And at one point, she had even asked her husband, like, jokingly, if he had been drugging her or something. And obviously, he said no.
Mm-hmm.
This continued until 2020, when Dominique was caught by a security guard trying to take upskirt photos of women in a shopping center.
Lovely.
Thibault, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce it. Thibault, I tried to correct it. Thibault Ray is the name of the security guard, FYI, that caught him. And I feel it's important to share that because if it wasn't for him, this pathetic asshole may have never been caught. When approached by the security guard, quote, Pelicot didn't resist. He froze in terror. I saw fear in his eyes, Ray says. As a result of being caught being a fucking disgusting, despicable old man, the police confiscated his phone and his computer and all of the other electronics.
Good.
Because they were like, you're taking pictures. Like, we got to figure out what's going on. Who else could be impacted so they can hold him accountable.
Literally
for
the guy that your mom warned you about, like, when you're out in public to, like, watch out for these fucking creepers.
People like this are why I wear shorts under, like, even my long dresses.
Literally, all the time.
But there, they found images so much worse than they had ever imagined. In his electronics, they found photos and videos of Dominique and over 71 men raping Gisele. Over 20,000 photos and videos, all stored on computer drives and cataloged in folders marked abuse, her rapists, night alone, and other titles.
He titled the folders that?
Yeah. Like, how confident, how have he'd been doing this for so long. He had never been caught by her. His confidence level is, like, through the fucking roof. Part of what he would do was during the day, throughout their marriage, he was, like, the absolute best, most perfect husband. He would go above and beyond, cleaning, cooking dinner, taking care of her.
Yes, he's a psychopath. He's good at manipulating the situations and himself.
Yeah. And he always made sure to finish the day off with Gisele by giving her her favorite sorbet, which I can only imagine that's what he's probably putting sleeping medications into. Meanwhile,
easy enough to do.
Meanwhile, like, on the other hand, he had been meeting men on a French swingers website, with the planning taking place in a chat room called, quote, without her knowledge.
Ugh.
Men would park their cars down the street before entering their marital bedroom, with Pelicot insisting that they avoid smoking or wearing any fragrance to avoid detection. She would wake in the morning in her pajamas, feeling tired, but suspecting it was due to walking so much the previous day. So all of this is going on without her knowledge. So in 2020, when he's arrested for the upskirt photos, she gets a call from the police and she's asked to go in and speak with them. She thinks that she's going in just to give, like, a statement to talk about, oh, you know, he's such a great husband. Like, I can't imagine that he would do this. But, you know, like, the stuff that if Bobby got arrested, that you would do,
Yeah,
you know?
of course.
But when she arrives, they show her videos and photos of her abuse. She said that her world collapsed around her.
I cannot imagine being her in this situation.
They've been together for, at this point now, in 2020, 50 years. Like, I want to make it super clear, in no instance is abuse or rape ever okay, right? It's one thing to find out or to be raped by somebody that you do not know.
Right.
But, like, to me, in my fucking brain, I couldn't even imagine the pain of, like, somebody that you trust and that you've had in your life for so long. Like, I can't even
That's your
begin
person,
to.
that's your best friend.
Yeah.
And that they would do that to you. It's also, so there's two parts of it that are horrifying for a person going into a situation where you go into the situation not realizing that something's been going on, and your memories are then changed.
Yeah.
And that, because there have been times when, like, for a split second, I'll be like, did I? And you, like, it kind of feels like physically and mentally, like, things collapse. And for a moment, you freeze, everything gets hot. So there's that already, like, the feeling of, like, wait a minute, something's not right with my brain, and I have to figure that out. And then realizing that you've been betrayed to the ultimate degree.
And it wasn't just her. Allegedly, and this is a statement from the daughter. The daughter was also called in to talk to police. Yeah, they had 3 kids.
Okay.
Only 1 daughter, from what I saw, and 2 sons. The daughter was called in to talk to police too, and she was shown pictures of a woman in lingerie that she had never seen before, and she then realized that it was her. But her dad denies ever having touched or abused her. But of course, we can trust him. Yeah, we can trust the guy that invited 71 men.
No, this guy is
his
a
wife.
compulsive lying psychopath. We don't get to trust anything he ever says again.
But, like, fortunately for Gisele and the daughter, like, the family came together and, like, were there for her.
Just the fact that the daughter was involved too.
I know. It's heartbreaking.
Because a lot of times when you hear about male serial killers who have that double life, they will still treat their children like, unfortunately, it sounds bad, but like really good fathers.
Yeah.
And their children are so shocked to find out about their parents, and they would never have hurt their children.
Well, that's because their children are people to them.
Yes.
You know, like...
And so it's wild to this guy, no one is a person.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter who they are.
So, when Gisèle Pelicot found all this out, the police talked to her and they said, we can go ahead and, file charges or whatever the French version of that is. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with their system. And we can do this as a Jane Doe so that way nobody knows that you're the victim. And she said, fuck no, I want my name out there. She insisted that the trial was held publicly and not behind closed doors.
That's very brave.
Yeah, and she did this with the hopes that it would help other rape victims.
Yeah.
Quote, they, the rapists, are the ones who must be ashamed, she said, adding that having videos filmed by her husband of some of her rapes shown during the trial was very difficult but necessary. I'm not expressing hatred or hate, but I am determined that things change in this society, she says. Protests had been going on since the start of this trial to show support for Miss Pelicot, with many women expressing admiration for her courage. It's not courage, it's determination to change things. This is not just my battle, but that of all rape victims. Mm-hmm. Most of the accused told the court that they had been manipulated by Dominique Pelicot, rejecting the blame and putting it on him. Only a few admitted to raping Gisele. Some argued that Dominique Pelicot's consent covered his wife too. Some insisted that they hadn't intended to rape anybody when they responded to the husband's invitations to come to their home. Some laid the blame at his door, saying he misled them into thinking that they were taking part in his consensual kink. So, my thing with that, I am not relinquishing any... Like, these men are all guilty of the crime they have committed. I want to make that super clear. For some of them, though, I do genuinely believe that they thought that, like...
They were being invited for a threesome or something.
Or that, like, I mean, there are a bunch of different, like, types of kinks. There's, like, in this case, this would be probably
like
fall under...
people or...
Well, this could fall under consensual non-consent, which is effectively, like, rape role play.
Yes.
For some people, like, that's what they like, you know? And so maybe they were genuinely under the impression that they had done this before in other scenarios where they thought the woman was pretending to be passed out, or that she had consented while awake, and then, you know, the husband was speaking on her behalf. But, like, to me, my thought is, like, this is the kind of, that's the kind of kink that, like, you need safe words for.
Yes.
You need to have, like, a bunch of fail stops in place for.
You need to know the people.
And yes, exactly. Why would
go
you go
into a
into
room with someone you've never fucking met before?
Yes.
No.
Who can't interact or respond or literally say the words I consent or even no? Like, no.
You almost need to have, like, contract and terms. Like,
exactly.
For that kind of shit.
Or, like, have just fucking met up before and
Yes.
said, hey, let's get lunch together. Let's fucking talk about the yeses and the nos and what's acceptable with this
It
exchange
should
and
be
what's
a
not.
red flag for you if you only spoke to one
To the husband.
person, to the husband. And
Yeah.
I've never spoken to the wife before, and you come into the room and she's already passed out on the bed. That should be a red flag to you.
So I do believe that some of these men really do think that she had gave consent and that they were, like, surprised that she hadn't. So Mr. Pelicot, the ex-husband, they are now divorced again, obviously, and thank God. So Dominique Pelicot and all but one of his co-defendants were convicted of sexually assaulting her over a period of nearly a decade. The other co-defendant, the one that was not convicted of raping her, was convicted of drugging and raping his own wife with Dominique's help.
Great. So he's teaching other people
Exactly.
how to do this.
Yeah. Outside the courtroom, protesters gathered and followed the developments on their phones. Some read out the verdicts and applauded when they were announced inside. But disquiet grew as many of the sentences were lower than the campaigners had hoped for, and cries of, quote, shame on the justice system rose up from the crowd.
It's sad to see that you hope that in Europe it's better, but it's bad everywhere.
In addition to the 20 years they sought for Dominique Pelicot, prosecutors asked for sentences of 10 to 18 years for others charged with rape. But the court was more lenient, with many defendants getting less than a decade in prison. Sophie Burton, age 53, who traveled from Lyon to support Gisèle Pelicot, said the trial, quote, brought the subject of rape out into the open, but expressed disappointment that the sentences aren't at all exemplary. Some men will think, okay, it's all right. What they did really wasn't rape. The message that's sent is this really serious? With sentences that are so light, for me, it was meant to be a historic trial, but the feeling I have is that history hasn't been made.
No.
And that's still Miss Sophie Burton.
I'm glad that justice was sought and they carried out this process, but no.
Yeah.
Rapists are never given enough time in prison. And like I said, it's unfortunate. You would hope that it's, confined to the US, but it's not.
No, of course not.
Like,
it's unfortunately.
Rapists will continue to rape.
Yeah.
Like, especially when you have serial rapists and they get 10 to 20 years. They need life. They are not going to stop raping people.
I am not a proponent of the death sentence.
Yeah.
But this is the kind of person where you are so disgusting and despicable that I think he should die. So, on top of that, this motherfucker is even worse than we expected. Dominique Pelicot has admitted to assaulting and attempting to rape a 23-year-old estate agent known by the pseudonym Marion in the suburbs of Paris in 1999. A cloth imbued with ether was put over her mouth, but she managed to fight her attacker off and he ran away. It was only in 2021, after he was arrested for the crimes that he inflicted upon his wife, that Pelicot's DNA was cross-checked with some of the blood found on that woman's shoe, and he admitted to his guilt. He has, however, denied responsibility for another cold case in 1991, a rape and a murder of another young estate agent, Sophie Narme, who the investigators have argued that the two cases have way too many similarities for it to be coincidence. They haven't followed up with any DNA that they've received or anything along those lines. I don't know if they've run the tests, but he's saying he didn't do it. But come on.
I mean, someone who's willing to do what he has done, there are no limits. I think he will do anything. So I would absolutely not rule out that he has killed people.
Yeah, and they're also looking at other cases with the same MO to see if they can cross DNA or see if they can wrap those up with the information that they have regarding him too. So this is obviously an awful situation. Fortunately, the people, they say that they invited 71 men over. Only 51 people were charged, which means there's potentially 20 more people out there that either haven't been identified or they haven't fully linked to this yet. I don't know. Maybe people died, whatever. So I want to shift away and I want to talk about some upsides that we can kind of see from this horrible situation. Just silver lining stuff.
Yeah.
So women and men in France and around the world saw this and are pushing for change. People are horrified, for obvious reason, and these hearings have fueled conversations on a national level in France and among families. Couples and friends are talking now about how to better protect women and the role that men can play in that. Quote, men are starting to talk to women, their girlfriends, mothers, and friends in ways that they hadn't before, about things that they hadn't before. Good. Some women are realizing, maybe for the first time, that their ex-husbands violated them, or that someone close to them committed abuse. Yeah. And men are starting to reckon with their own behavior complicity, things they've ignored or failed to act on. It's heavy, but it's creating change. A banner that campaigners hung on a city wall opposite from the courthouse reads, Merci, Gisèle. Thank you, Gisèle. Another beautiful thing, while also horrific, is that since this ruling has been so public and all this has gone on, the number of calls at a call center located in a Paris hospital, and this call center specializes in assisting victims of chemical submission, which is being drugged or put under and then abused, have multiplied rapidly. That number right there is horrific. But at least people are aware that this resource is present and they can call and they can talk to people to try to hold their abusers accountable. The Pelicot mass rape trial propelled the notion of chemical submission into the national spotlight. And although there aren't many updated numbers for 2024, nearly 2,000 complaints or calls were recorded by the Paris Center in 2022, which was up 70% from the year before, 2021. And approximately 80% of these cases involve women, particularly those between the ages of 20 and 29. They said this call center has been set up for a while. They had an initial surge with the Me Too movement in 2017, but the mass rape trial has marked a point of no return. They went in and did interviews with people or like listening to some of the phone calls being received. Not like the people, but like, you know, the workers in the call center. One of the advocates was on the phone and was heard saying, quote, "Nobody's allowed to touch you. There's no such thing as a right to rape or assault someone." Which the fact that it has to be said at all is heartbreaking, but at least there are people advocating for these victims and speaking for them and helping them work through some stuff and find
this
resources.
making it more okay for women to feel like they can
come out and speak and hold people accountable.
Yeah, exactly. Which is great.
Another striking consequence of the trial is the unprecedented wave of calls from professionals such as doctors, magistrates, or NGOs. I'm not sure what an NGO is, but sounds pretty.
National Girlfriend Office.
Love it. One thing that is striking since the trial is the overmobilization of healthcare professionals who are flabbergasted by the fact that this victim had been wandering around for so long with symptoms that she described and complained about, but which had not been identified as potentially involving the administration of substances. These professionals recognized that they could have missed this too, and that's why we're particularly in demand for training courses to improve the spotting of some of these warning signs. The French government has promised that it would launch reforms to help people who fear they have been drugged and then raped, including state-funded test kits.
Good.
Another small detail, just to show how united the world is on this front. When Gisele walked into a French courtroom to hear the dozens of men who raped her answer for their crimes, she wore a scarf that she said served as a hug from the other side of the planet. The scarf was a gift from the Australia's Older Women's Network, whose members were inspired by Miss Pelicot's bravery and wanted to give her something as a symbol of their support and gratitude. "A scarf is like a hug. It's draped around your neck, and it hangs close to your heart," said 74-year-old Beverly Baker, the advocacy group's president. "We sent it to her in solidarity to say, look, you're not alone. Women across the world are backing you." Miss Pelicot wore the scarf frequently through her trial, including when she gave evidence. The scarf features work of Mulyatingli Marnie. I apologize, it's an Aboriginal name.
Good try.
Thank you. An 83-year-old Aboriginal artist. Her artwork depicts a cluster of saltwater pools in Western Australia's remote Pilbara region, known amongst the Māori people for their healing properties, and tells a cultural story about a family of dingoes. "The moon is taking care of the dingo pups. It's looking after them," Miss Marnie is quoted as saying when describing the piece. And I just think that's really sweet. Like,
Very sweet. Yeah.
the last thing that I would like to finish out on is I would like to read Gisele's statement after the trial in full. "It is with deep emotion that I speak to you today. This trial was a very difficult ordeal. I think first of all of my 3 children, David, Coraline, and Florian. I also think of my grandchildren because they are the future, and it is also for them that I have led this fight, as well as my daughter-in-laws, Aurora and Celine. I also think of all the other families affected by this tragedy. Finally, I think of the unrecognized victims whose stories often remain in the shadows. I want you to know that we share the same light. I would like to express my deepest gratitude to all the people who supported me through this ordeal. Your testimonies have upset me, and I have drawn from them the strength to come back every day. Long days of hearings. I also thank the Victims Aid Association for their unwavering support. It has been invaluable to me. To all the journalists who have followed me and followed this case since its inception, I wish to express my gratitude for their faithful, respectful, and dignified treatment to which they reported daily on these hearings. To my lawyers, finally, all the gratitude and esteem that I have for them for having accompanied me at each stage in this painful journey. I wanted, by opening the doors of this trial on September 2nd, that society could take hold of the debates that took place here. I have never regretted this decision. I now have confidence in our ability to collectively seize a future in which each woman and man can live in harmony with respect and mutual understanding. I thank you."
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
She is so brave.
Honestly, yeah.
Like,
I don't know if I could do that.
no. She's brave for not doing this anonymously, first of all, and then brave of being in that courtroom, like,
Yeah.
watching all this, listening to people, like, she's in her 60s.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just can't even, I don't know, she's an icon.
For real. One of the things in my picture here that I have for the document is an article from the Mirror, and the headline says "The World's Bravest Woman," and like, frankly,
Yeah, she gets that fucking award.
yeah.
Ugh.
So I'm sorry that I've ruined our mood for the day. But I just,
it's a really important one to talk about.
Yeah.
It's very important to talk about. It is, unfortunately, the reason why there are podcasts like this, it is interesting.
Mhm.
I shouldn't necessarily say unfortunate, but it's interesting to hear those stories like that because you just couldn't even fathom that there are people in the world that are so horrible. But there are, and there's probably worse ones out there too.
Yeah. Just take care of each other. Take care of yourself.
Don't be afraid to speak out.
Yes.
Don't let the men who do shadow you and tell you and try to belittle these, these problems and things that happen to you. Don't let their voices win. Speak out.
Speak out. Hold people accountable. It's so hard, and I feel so deeply for any woman who was assaulted. I've read so many different articles and like books and things about this topic where like people are treated poorly by the police when they talk about like, hey, I was assaulted. And if you are able to stand up and call out your assaulter and hold them accountable, fucking power to you. Thank you so much. And for those that can't, whenever you're ready, you can. People are there for you.
People are there for you. If you don't have people in your circle, if your friends and family are not supportive of you, there are resources out there and other people who do want to help you, like this woman and all of the groups that have started helping women.
Yeah.
There are people you can call on, resources, things like that. Like somebody out there wants to help you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
we'll help you. You can call us.
Do we have a phone number?
1-800-MAKE-IT-WEIRD.
Oh, I was really hoping those numbers would work out, but it really doesn't. Dang.
No, but you can email us if you genuinely don't know who else to talk to and you're looking for someone to, you need a resource.
We can always try to do our best to find something for you.
Yeah.
It might not be any better than what you could find on Google, but we'll do our best to help.
We'll help you. Yeah. makeitweirdpod@gmail.com.
Yeah, or message us on Instagram.
Yeah. Any of the social medias. We read them all the time.
Yeah. Well, mostly you. You always see the notifications before I do, and then you're so fast on them to respond. And then I open, somebody messaged, your mom's friend messaged the other day, and I saw the notification and I opened it and I saw you had already responded, and I was like, what the fuck am I here for?
Listen, I'm obsessive, and that's most of my personality.
Great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was really good, though.
Yeah.
Awful, but a good story to hear, an important one.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome for bringing the mood down.
Thanks for joining in on Make It Sad.
The sad cast, where we make it sad. Sad bugs.
Every episode, it gets sadder.
It kind of does. A little bit.
This one that I had, and then my next one, they're sad, but they're also, I should not say lighthearted. It was a murder. I shouldn't say that. But, I don't know. It's more on the interesting level because it has to do with The Exorcist, I guess. But
and it's, yeah.
I
also feel it's hard when it is so, recent because
Yes.
I've been following that case. And
Because the more years that separate us, it feels farther away from you, and these things feel like they can't happen, and then it's literally happening right now.
Anything older than 10 years ago, we can laugh at.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you guys for listening in. Once again, I'm Harmony.
I'm Haley.
That's Haley.
That's Harmony.
Correct.
Great.
And this was
Make It Weird.
Bye.